Hello everyone, it's Yogi here. I hope you're well. My goodness. Yes. Saturday, okay? Sao Amy Day or Amy Sao Day. You're probably wondering, what are you doing here, Yogi, doing demo? Yes. That's what I'm here to do. So today I'm going to show you how to sort of do block by block parking. And the reason that kind of inspired me to do this demo is I've been receiving a lot of comments from some of the YouTube videos, comments, and basically have their jaw dropped and eyes open and wondering why on earth would you be parking? And apparently a lot of people are not aware of this way of stitching. And I shouldn't be surprised because I still remember the first time I saw people parking on YouTube. My mind was just blown. And but I've been stitching for a little while, so I kind of took it for granted. We talk about stitches, we say, parking this, parking that, different methods. But there are a whole bunch of stitches out there. Maybe they've been stitching for a long time, but they have not come across this way of stitching. So I want to do a demo in terms of how to park block by block in the diagonal direction. And this is my first kind of entry sort of demo because this was the first parking method I learned myself. So I want to share it. And this is by no means the way of doing it, but this is how I learned it. And it has worked. So, so today I'm going to use an actual project I've got. So this is one of my 14 count projects. It was a twilight view. Okay, so I wanted to use my actual project for demonstration because, it's just more realistic and rather than creating a fictional project. So guys, I want to say hello to you, but not one by one. I want to focus on the demonstration right here, but I can see you in the chat, okay? And later on when we start our Amy Sao in maybe 2 to 3 hours time, and I'll say hello to you properly, okay? But I can see you in the chat. And welcome everyone to the demo. And if you're new to the channel and popped over here to see this demo, and give me a little wave as well, so I know you're there. So the obvious question is, why on earth do you want to do it, right? Stitching, why have to, create situations that you have to manage a lot of threads sometimes. So I have my own reasons, and I'll sort of bit by bit talk about it, but I also want to know your view as well. If you are already doing parking, why would you park? Okay, so what I've got here is my actual project, as I said, but I kind of moved away a little bit from my, current sort of stitches, so I can have a clear start here. So let me bring on my my iPad view here, my Saga. So this is the app I've been using to track pretty much all my projects right now. So as you can see, I've got some bits going on there. Okay, so this is my real project that I am working on actively. So I basically moved a few blocks to the right there, so you know what's happening on my fabric. I'm going to start from this block, and this view will probably give you some idea that if you're starting from a brand new project, no stitches on it, how would you go about to start? So this is the actual pattern, and I picked this bit because it's got sort of quite a nice balance of color changes, but not too many. We don't want to do confetti here. And if you don't know what confetti is, I will explain as we move forward. So this is my starting point, and let me move back to my fabric here. So this will be the starting point. So diagonal stitching is basically going from diagonal direction. You can, I choose to do upper left this time. So if you have a brand new project, this will be your upper left top of corner of your pattern. Okay, so that will be the first block here. Let me show you. If you have your pattern right here, this is my the entire piece of my pattern here. It will be this block on the upper left. This will be your starting point. But of course, you can start from any corner, upper left, upper right, bottom right. But today we want to focus on upper left. I don't know the percentage of people parking on whichever direction, whichever corners, but I think from my observation, upper left seems to be most popular, that I've seen most, and probably because it's intuitive. You know, we as human eyes, we go from top to bottom, left to right. So basically what we're going to do is to move from the upper left to bottom right. So that's the direction, just bear in mind that. So this will be your first block on the upper left corner. Okay, so let's start there. So in terms, I just want to give you a quick intro on the direction where we're moving here. So let me bring on this little slide that I created in my basement with my power tool. Okay, I've been fiddling with my power tool quite a lot. So this, by default, you will be looking at this. Okay, this is your upper left corner, and then what we're going to do, what's happening is we're going to move to the block that's on the right side and the bottom of your first block. So that's the direction we're moving. And so let's focus on the block on the right and block on at the bottom. And I number them because that would be the sequence in terms of how you move forward with your stitches. We move from block 1 and then we go on to stitch block 2 and then block 3 to create that diagonal direction downwards. And I'll show you more as we move forward. So I want to kind of get into the stitching. I think the best way to demonstrate is to actually stitching real time here that you can see. So so you know what's happening. You know, if I was just making a video and kind of edited, sometimes there, you know, first of all, you can't ask me questions, and also you don't get to see how it's happening actually. So this is the block I'm gonna start, and I'm using a highlighting box to highlight the area for you, so it's easier for you to see. So I am going to pick the first color. So you might go, well, how do I go about and pick my first color here? So I am going to keep things very, very simple because there are a couple of different variation of factors that it might dictate how you stitch the first block here. That's right here. So I want to keep things simple by just stitching all the stitches of the same color within this block, 10 by 10 block, and that's it, and move on. Because within this method, this box, you could do row by row, you could do typewriting, or various, you know, different sequences of stitching. But I am going to just roughly going from top to bottom, start in order, but not so much typewriting. I might pick and choose different colors as I go along to make it easier. So what I'm going to do is to pick my first color here. Okay, so and I'll talk through what I'm doing as I do. So let me just pick my first color here, so you can see what's happening on my fabric here. So nice and big here. You can see I basically just went and picked the first color. And guys, if you have questions directly, you would like me to answer when between breaks of me, my monologue, then put a question mark or exclamation marks, whichever is going to grab my eyes, and I'll go to those first, so I can filter them out from general chat there. So I am going to pick this color. So it's 3315. So what I'm going to do, so in this demo, I'm not going to focus on how to start or how to end. We can have a separate session. So in this session, in this demo, I want to focus on the sequence of events in terms of how you move around with your stitches and what directions you go and where to park. That's the important part. So, and as I'm stitching, starting to put on my first stitch, and I'll probably share with you, I think I'm going to share with you why I park. So I'm going to start my first stitch on the upper left here. It's nice and simple. The first stitch is always the most exciting. And also this way of parking, what I'm demonstrating here, has no bearing on fabric counts or whether you're stitching single strand or double strand, whichever. The method does not change. You might pick and choose how you complete the stitches, but otherwise, in terms of the methodology, it's pretty much the same. So you can tell that I'm stitching the first two, right? And I'll mark them as I go, so you know what's happening here. So first stitches here done on the top left, I'm going to mark them, okay? And then all I'm going to do is just move down the nearest stitch. So what I'm doing is color completion within the 10 by 10 block. And it's a lot more, it's a lot easier actually, because some people, they might do 2 blocks at a time, or 1 block on top and the other at the bottom, kind of tower method. But 10 by 10 is very easy to manage, and basically just follow the sequence of the stitches there and start stitching and complete 1 color at a time. And when I finish all these stitches on this 10 by 10 block, and I'll show you where I'll be parking, okay? And there are a few options here. So the reason you want to park, I think people park for choosing parking methods for different reasons. First of all, when I saw it, when I first saw people doing this way of stitching, I was amazed, obviously, because of all the threads dangling. So curiosity was one when I first started, but then I realized that the whole reason I was looking for different ways of stitching was because it was my first time stitching full coverage, and I came across patterns, formations of stitches that I had never seen before, because prior to that I was doing dimensions and really simple cross-stitching kits. But if you look at the kind of formation of a blend of different colors, you simply cannot stitch the same way as you would stitching patterns like dimensions or other simpler type of kits. And this is what I referred to earlier on as confetti. I mean, this block at this moment, I wouldn't say it's confetti at all. It's got healthy amount of color changes, but not too bad, not too bad. Confetti is when you have tons and tons of, the more numbers of colors within a block, for instance, within the area, the more confetti you have. So, okay, so here I'm stitching the last stitch of this block. So this is where the parking begins, okay? So let me move out here and unhighlight this box here. So you can see if you ignore all the stitches on my left here, because we are starting from fresh from upper left, so this is your upper left, the top corner there. So if you look to the right and the bottom, so this is where you need to make a decision on where to park. So to the block to the right, it's kind of obvious candidate because there are already 3 on the left side, very close to me. If you look at my block here, right, the 3 on the right, the block to the right here, it's got stitches of the same color very close to me. But let's look at the bottom block as well. The block at the bottom here also has 1 stitch, but only 1 single stitch here. Let me have a look. Can you see that? Okay, just 1 stitch at the bottom left here. And so we need to touch upon the sequence, okay? So let me bring this back here. So this will be a good time to explain this. So in terms of the sequence you stitch is going from 1, 2, and 3. That creates a diagonal. So the question will be, where do you park? So what happens is my first choice will be to look to the right, to number 2, because that will be the next block in terms of your journey stitching. I'm moving from 1 to 2, so I look to the right first to see if there's any stitches of the same color that I'm going to park. So in this case, yes. But if not, what you do is to look down. So that would be your second choice. And in my case, there's a stitch down there as well, but the stitches on my right there is closer. So you make judgment calls based on, or personally, that would be how I choose is, first of all, are these next stitches on my right? If so, that could be my first choice. But I could park down as well. That's my choice as well if it's closer to me. So this is kind of a personal thing that you make judgment call, quite nuanced. As you move forward, you probably, it will probably make a lot more sense. But if there's no stitches on either, okay, a couple of things could happen. If no stitches of the same color on the block 2, and there's no stitches on the block 3 as well, what I personally would do is to look to the bottom right there. That would be my third choice. So that's out of sequence because, in terms of how you move forward, that wouldn't be the 4th block. And I'll show you where the 4th block would be. So as you move forward, okay, so as you move forward, the bottom right block will be number 5 instead. Okay, so it's out of sequence, but that's where I will park if I couldn't find anything on block 2 or block 3. I just find the 3rd location that's nearest. And if nothing at all, we'll talk about that in a bit. Some people might end the thread there, or you can park further. Okay, so I want to leave that out for now and focus on the neighboring blocks. So these are the 3 options. So first of all, you look to number 2. That's your next block. If not, number 3. Okay, in sequence. And if not, look to the bottom right. And so in this case, let me come back to my fabric here. So in this case, I've got, let me highlight this bit there. So this is my current block. There's 3 stitches to the right, so it's an obvious choice that I park to my right side. But the question is, which stitch do you pick? Because in theory, the stitch on the second row is nearer to me. But what I'm going to do is because there's 1 stitch here as well. Can you not see? There's 1 stitch here, just on the second row here. But what I'm going to do is to park a little bit further away on the top row. So where you park, or at least how I learned it and how I do the parking myself, I always go to the one that's highest position and left, upper left. So even though there's another stitch is slightly further to the left, but it's not in the top position. So you always go to the first row and look down and see which one is on the furthest left. So that's where you park. And there's a really good reason for that. When we start parking and get to the second block, it will become a lot more obvious. Okay, so I am going to park here. So it depends on how you manage your chart. You want to make a marking on that stitch that you park. So this is one of the questions that actually asked by quite a lot of viewers here. They one of the most frequently asked question is, how do you know what colors is what? And this is what's happening here. So what I've got here is using a chart. You can do it with paper chart as well. You just need to give it a symbol, and most of us probably use digital marking app of some sort, and I think all of them have a parking function. So what I'm doing here is to mark that stitch there with a different symbol. That diamond shape is my park thread, and how I find out what color it is just simply highlight the stitches, and it will tell me what color it is. And it works the same on paper chart. You could do the same. You mark it and you check what that symbol is. So it makes a lot of sense. So in theory, you shouldn't get confused. Not saying, it would never happen. When you park a lot, things get mixed up. But this is how you basically mark all the park threads here, so you know exactly what color it is. I hope that makes sense. So once that's parked, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this box again so you know which block I'm stitching. And I'm going to switch. Before that, I just want to show you what's happening on my fabric here. So once you have a part thread, this is what's happening. You have a working thread basically dangling there, and you can manage a different way. Normally I just leave it to the side, because we are stitching toward this direction, so all the past threads will be floating to the bottom diagonal or to the right. So all you have to do while you're working, how I personally do, is just brush them aside and allow them to cling to the fabric in some way. And as you build up more threads, there are different ways of managing it. Okay, and we can always discuss that later. So this is what happens. You just leave it to the side. It's not interfering with what you're stitching here. So all the part threads will be flowing away. All right, so let me bring back my second color here. So with this session, I haven't time boxed it, but hopefully we can wrap it up and just give you enough information before we can take a break and then move on to our saw there. Okay, so let's have a look. Let me move. I'm going to do it in the sequence. I'm going to pick the second symbol. It makes sense. So 3A60, 3A60. And if you have posted any questions there, I'll get to it as soon as I can. Okay, just mark the question with a question symbol, like bright red, in your face symbols. Now I'll look them up. So, and also please share, because there might be people that have never parked before, have never done a parking method, or kind of wondering, is it for me? I love to have you sharing why you do it and what benefit or maybe drawbacks in the chat as well. So, I might not be able to read it out, all of them, but you guys will be able to share that with each other as well. Because everybody is choosing parking methods for different reasons, and it's nuanced as well, because there are variations that you can kind of tweak your method. So I am going to just stitch complete this color here. So in terms of stitching sequence, I kind of just make judgment calls as I go. So I can do one row at a time, just follow the stitches, or I can just go to my nearest stitches there, and then just flow toward whichever direction that allows me to complete. So there's no hard and fast rules here. You do what you feel comfortable. You know, I've seen people, they literally just go row by row in sequence, so they don't get confused. So it probably depends on how the stitches flow, distributed on this 10 by 10 block here. So it could, you know, have influence on how you do it. And you can change it up as well. So I'm going to just mark them as I go so I don't get confused. So I'm simply just picking the stitches that's closest to me, okay? And it's absolutely the same way you park if you're doing single strand or if you're doing 25 counts. I chose 14 counts because you can see it nice and big. And it's the same if you do 10 stitches, no changes, okay? It's just the expression of the stitches looks slightly different, but in terms of method, identical. All right. And I'm just gonna randomly pick up sort of a few comments here as I'm stitching. Love Drunk for Diamonds says, hi Yogi, when I park, I may half a stitch and then park in the right corner. Yes, I have heard of people doing that. For my brain, it doesn't work, but I have seen people doing that, absolutely. And so instead of having a thread just floating out, the stitcher actually do half a stitch as a way of marking it. Yes, that can be done as well. That's a very good point. So I think, you know, stitchers just do things that allow them to identify those stitches as easily as possible. And also it probably anchors the stitches down a little bit more, right? Diamonds. Because sometimes when you just pull a thread out like this, it can get pulled down if you're not careful, and things can get kind of snagged. The threads can get snagged by other threads. That's a very good point. Personally, I don't do that because it's just doing my head in. But if that makes sense for you, that's one option. So you basically do one leg like that, you know, and then come up at the bottom corner there, right? Oh, and one thing really important I forgot to mention is which corner you park, right? And I'll stitch part this one for you, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And also, yes, which corner do you park then? You know, guys, please share. So what I'm going to do here, as you can see, this block happens to have a lot of stitches of this color on the right side, right? And one at the bottom. So the obvious candidate, of course, I'm going to part to the right because it's on the first corner, upper left corner. So that's a perfect location. So you always look for the next stitch to the right on the upper left, the highest row and furthest to the left. So this one will be my best candidate, the obvious choice there. So now I've got 2 threads part there, and I'm going to mark this one as well. Okay, I'm going to mark the first stitch on the left here. So again, the same symbol, but to the left, it's a different color. Okay, so now just quickly talk about which corner you park. So each stitch has 4 corners. So everybody's stitch have that, you know, you probably have different habit. I always go from bottom left and go to the right, and then bottom right to the upper left, pretty much. Occasionally I change the sequence if it's convenient for me, but as a starting point, I always go from bottom left to upper right, bottom right to upper left for the second leg. And it might be different for you. So where you park is that starting point of your cross, wherever it is. Some people might do upper right and bottom left, or the other way around. I don't know. I think most popular is probably bottom left or upper right. If it's different, doesn't matter. So you want to park at a corner that where you start your cross. That's it. And second most important thing is you need to be consistent. Okay, so some apps like Pattern Keepers, they give you sort of choices of which corner you're parking. But to be honest, this app, Saga, just totally ignores that, for the reason the majority of people probably park from at the same corner all the time, 100% of the time. And certainly for me, I never change it. I don't know why you want to change it. Okay, so where you park would be the corner that you start your stitches. That's it. And so now I have 2 threads here. Okay, and I'm gonna move on. So all you have to do is just clean them together, and it will be nice and tidy. And I'm gonna move on to the third color here. Okay, I'm keen to finish at least 1 block, so we can start the second block and show you how to deal with the part threads. Okay, and if we don't get to complete it, you know, I can probably still do it, but ideally I would like to finish the entire block so it's sure in your mind what is happening. And so I'm going to go with this flow by the follow the sequence and do the top left color as my third choice, which is 3A35. 3A35. Here we go. Yes, River says that's critical. Always park in the same hole. I always park at the bottom right. Exactly. Every stitch is different, and it doesn't matter how you start your stitches. Always park in the corner that you're going to start your cross, or 10 stitches. Doesn't matter. So that, hopefully that makes a lot of sense there. So this one, I only have 2 stitches, and let me look around. Okay, so let me start with this stitch, okay, and show you where I'll be parking next. Because these are the things, once you start parking, you kind of just forget that once upon a time, these things you have to learn bit by bit, and they're critical. Like, you know, if you park, it's quite obvious, of course, you park consistently. But just like River said, you know, if you don't, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I've completed this color nice and easy, 2 stitches. Okay, I'm gonna mark them so you know they're done. The next stitch for the closest stitch of this color is actually there's nothing at the bottom. Okay, so that's out. But my first choice would be to park on the right, and there are 2 stitches to my second block on the right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to pick the one on in the highest position, okay, and furthest to the left. So that would be this one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's 3 blocks below. So this is the stitch here, and I'm parking the bottom left. So this is where I will be, and pull it out. So that's the 3 different color threads to the right, and all you have to do is just kind of brush it to the side. You'll be nice and clear, out of the way of your stitching area. And I'm going to come back to my next color, and this one only has 1 stitch here. Okay, so what we're talking about, sort of confetti kind of situation, is this type of full coverage depends on how it's charted and how many colors involved with the chart. If you're stitching sort of max colors, you could have a single block. I've heard people having like 40 different colors within a block. So that's a prime example of confetti, meaning you have to change colors quite a lot. And I would say that would be one of the good reasons that you do parking, because imagine if you start and stopping for 40 times, you probably lose your mind, right? Or you simply just don't do block by block. You have other methods, maybe cross country, so you can just take your thread to wherever. But if you're doing parking, it's actually kind of manageable, because all you have to do, you don't have to start the thread to start with, and you don't have to end it. You just pick up whatever is there, stitch it, even just one, and you just park it to the next area. No starting or ending unless there are no stitches around of the same color. That could happen too. Then you end it, right? But otherwise, you are saving a lot of time threading. You have to thread, that's true, but you don't have to do the starting method, ending methods everywhere. So it would be one of the sort of main reason I like to park sometimes. And of course it's fun as well. I know for some people it's a nightmare, but for me it's fun. Managing the thread is part of the kind of, stitching experience here that's very unique. So I'm going for the highest position for this stitch, and there's another one to the left. So this one is interesting, okay? So I'm stitching, there are only 2 stitches of this color. One is the one I've just stitched, and the other one is to the bottom left here, almost at the bottom row here. Okay, so the question is, guys, I'm going to show you the pattern here. Where would you park personally? Right? So let me see if you can is your answer here. So my second stitch is here. That completed all the stitches within this block. There's one to the right there, further to the right, and there's another one to the bottom. Two more at the bottom. Where would you park? Okay, and these are the things that's nuanced, and there's no right or wrong. So it's really up to you. Depends on what you feel most comfortable. Okay, all right. So for me, I would park at the bottom. Okay, so I would park at this position. Can you see that? That's the highest position for this stitch that lives in the block below. Instead, even though this is my 3rd block, next block I'll be going to the right. But in order for me to park to the right, the reason I want to park down is I'll need to take the stitch all the way. Frida says, I will part to the right because that's my natural continuation mode. Okay, so that's Frida's choice. Very good. And personally, I would part down here. And the reason I would not part to the right is, in order to part to the stitch that's a higher position on the second block, I have to travel quite far or further, much further. So this is a judgment call, and when parking becomes a slightly nuanced, or very nuanced really, in order for me to park it to this position up here, oh sorry, I forgot to mark this one. I need to mark this one. Oh, bad practice. You see, the third one I forgot to mark. So that was the last color. So in order for me to park it over here, I have to take it further to more stitches. So that's my personal choice. Okay, so you could do either. There's no right or wrong. So I'm looking at whether I need to take my thread over stitch area, which is either cases are okay. It's quite clear. But also the distance I have to take my thread over. That's my own consideration. It might not be yours. For some stitches, it's okay. They like to travel far, but I want to stitch in sequence, just like Frida. But for me, I would personally part down here. Okay, so I am going to mark this color here. So these are the step-by-step kind of, situation. And that's why it's fun. It's almost like a puzzle game and strategy game that you kind of do as you move forward with your stitching. So you're not just blindly stitching all the stitches, which is fun, but you have to have a plan and have a strategy. And throughout, I actually get to understand better of myself as a stitcher, what kind of stitcher I am, So once you part down, you want to flow the thread downwards. Makes sense? So you just flow to the direction where you park. So it's easy to manage. So I'm going to move on to the next one here. And pick this one over here. Okay, so this one, very interesting. So there's another thing I want to talk about here. So let me pick my thread first. 3A, 5A, 3A, 5A. I do have a cup of coffee here. I might take a sip. 3A, 5A. And I need to look at the time as well. I think we're pretty good with the time. Because our saw, doesn't normally happen till about 8 or 8:30 UK time anyway. And I want to be thorough as much as I can with this demo, so you know exactly what's happening. So I want to show you this block here. Okay, so in terms of where you start your stitches, it's up to you, but normally I'll look at the flow of the stitches and also where I'm going to part next. So here it is. I am going to flow from good question. I'm going to start with these 2 stitches on the left here. So not in sequence. If you stitch from top to bottom, in theory, you should go for the one that's on the first row. But I want the thread to flow with the stitches. I might even start from this one here. So I can kind of draw a line between these stitches and take it to where I want to part. Okay, so give you a hint. I am going to part to my second block to the right there. Let me show you the full view of these 2 blocks. I am going to part to the block on the first row, on the top stitch there. In order to do that, I need to kind of have a plan in terms of how I flow my stitches. So I don't have kind of more, I don't need to take my stitches everywhere, or at least minimize. the distance I have to travel back and forth. So I'm going to start with these 2 stitches. I hope you can see what I'm trying to do here. So there's a constant kind of planning in my mind. You could keep it simple. You could just stitch all the stitches in the block, do whatever you want, complete them, and park wherever you want, right? As long as it makes sense to you. That's perfectly fine. But I like to kind of have a plan of where I flow my stitches within the block here. So I am going to go this way down. Yeah, I hope you know what I'm trying to do here. And go to the bottom, okay? And I'm going to come down to the bottom right, all right? Can you see what I'm trying to do here? So as I'm floating, flowing through these stitches, what I'm trying to do is to flow my stitches to a point that I can take my end stitch closest to where I'm going to part next. I know, I'm so cunning. As soon as I say that, the whole thing is going to fall apart, I'm pretty sure. It's going to end up in disaster. But that's how my brain works. It's like it's a puzzle game. Maybe that's why I like Gemma's method, because it's like a game I can play as I'm stitching. So I am taking, basically, let me mark these threads here. If you look at the positions of these stitches, I'm flowing from the left to the bottom, and I'm going to take it up to the upper right there. Okay. And there are 3 more stitches here. I know, Yogi is so cunning, isn't it? Yes. So these are the calculations I have in my head. Makes it fun. So I am going to do my last stitch, okay, on the top row there. So basically I draw a circle. I flow the stitches back to the top position. Whereas normally, if you stitch in sequence, you probably go from top to bottom, right? Which you could do as well if you're planning to part to the bottom, because there are tons of stitches here at the bottom. But I'm going to part to the right. So I want to take my last stitch and place it here. Okay, and this will be my end stitch here. Makes sense? And then it's not too far away when I take the thread over to the top right there, which is in my next block. That's the third stitches from the right. 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. And that's why I park. That will be the parking for position for this color. Makes sense? So I'm going to mark all these stitches here. So as I said, you can keep it really, really simple. You just fill all the stitches in and then decide where to park. But I like to have a kind of a high level plan there, and just look at where the stitches flow and take it to the nearest position to the spot I'm going to park. All right. So it is fun. It's so much fun because you don't know what's going to come next and what you have to do. So, okay, let me pick my next color here. Whoops. Okay. So there are quite a few stitches here. Lona says, I will park in the dungeon over the east tower as well for the same reason. For the east dungeon in this, this one, dungeon of the east corner. this one, right? Yes, that's a choice as well. It doesn't mean that you have to stick with 1, 2, or 3. You can park out of order, totally. Lona is asking, Yogi, how do you mark all those stitches in your box at the same time? Okay, that's a Saga question. So if you have a box and it's locked, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Saga itself, but just quickly for Lona, if you have the chart locked and or not locked, you don't have to lock it, but if you have highlight box and you hit the basket, or not a basket, bucket, and it will mark everything within that box. But only do it if you have a highlight box, okay? You don't want to do it for the entire chart, which I have done. I'm known to have done that by mistake. Let me have a sip of my coffee here. So you can mark manually by unlocking the chart, or you can just mark like all the stitches within the box. And the box can be any size, okay? Oh, on your third block. Okay, so Lona said she will part further. So yes, that's a very good point, because let me just take this color first, 3A63. That's a very good point that Lona just made, because earlier on I lightly touched upon the distance. How far would you go to park it? So even though we're stitching in sequence in theory, right, if you follow the method, but it doesn't mean you have to park in sequence. So you can park, like Lona said, if there's no stitches below, you could park further. You can park as far as you want if you're comfortable with it. Personally, I like to park within the next block, and maybe occasionally if the next stitch is somewhere, maybe, yeah, on the top part of the block below, then I might do it. But if it's at the bottom, I might choose to end it. So every person is different. So 3A63. So there's no right and wrong, but you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know what your comfort zone is, what you feel comfortable or not. When you start working in this method, you will find out. So it's not something that you have to kind of have a, hard and fast rules for. Okay, so very good point there. Very good point there. Jeff River says, I think all Saga users have done that, as in, mistakenly marking all the color, all the stitches of the same color by mistake. If you don't lock your chart, or highlight the boxes, yes, you would do that. So next one over here. Okay, I hope it makes sense so far, and I hope it's fun. It is fun. No, I don't park with every project, but I miss it if I don't do parking for a while. It's that mental exercise that is very interesting and challenging at times, and I like challenges. I don't like to stitch the same way all the time. So this one is pretty obvious, and you see, I probably wouldn't have, I was chatting, so never mind, but I started with this stitch, but normally I'll probably start, hang on, no, I think I'm fine, because for this stitch, for this color, okay, let me show you what's going to happen. Okay, so I'm stitching from top to bottom this time. So I'm going to complete this color, just following the stitches that's nearest to me. Okay, and if you look at the formation distribution of this stitch, eventually it's going to take me to the bottom. Okay, the bottom of the block. So in this case, you have multiple choices. Let me zoom out. Yes, you have multiple choices. You can part to the right or to the left. And it really depends on where your starting point is. In theory, I could start from the bottom, the stitch at the bottom there, go up and then part to the right. I probably would have done that if I actually paid attention before I start stitching, because I would like to park in sequence as much as I can to the right, because it's convenient for me. When I get to the second block, I've got everything ready for me. You know, majority of the colors will probably already been part there. But in this case, I'm gonna just follow the stitches from top to bottom. Okay. 1, 2, oh, one extra stitch. See, even when Yogi doing demonstration, the mistake still happens. Okay. nothing changes. Okay, nothing changes. So here, yeah, dungeon should be the one below. Basement, yes, is probably one block below. It's Royal Roll's terminology, I think. I don't know what the other methods referring to blocks as dungeons. So I want to block them, mark them as I go, so you know where I'm flowing toward. So I'm going to just follow the stitches and flow to the bottom. So my last stitch will be at the very bottom of this 10 by 10 block there. Miriam says, parking is the only way I handle loads of confetti. So it's one of the, reasons why people park, because then you can manage the starting and stopping a bit better. So, okay, so I finished all the stitches up there. I just noticed how beautiful these colors are. It's so pretty. And the last stitch would be at the bottom. Can you see that? Okay, I'm going to complete this stitch. Right, so I'm going to mark all of them here. Okay, so as I'm coming to the bottom of the block, if I look to the right, yeah, there are tons of stitches, but my highest position stitch is actually on the second row, which is quite high up, which means I could take my thread over there, part there. Okay, that's one choice. If you park in sequence, absolutely. Or you can park down, because there's stitches below, and the highest position from the block below is on the third row below. So there's no right or wrong. Again, you could 1, 2, 3 and 4. So 2 choices, right? So even though these stitches on the right there, on the sort of first column to the left, in theory would be quite close as well, but you wouldn't park there, because you want to follow the convention of always parking on the stitches that's highest, in the highest position and the furthest to the left. And it would be the second block from the right there. They will be right there, right? And so you, in this case, I'm neutral. I'm happy to park over there, and I'm also happy to park below. But in this case, just for demonstration, I want to park below. So I just want to show you that you can park out of order. That's perfectly fine. It's a personal choice. So I'm going to park for 1, 2, 3. Yes, that's the one. So I'm going to park right here. Okay. And it's absolutely perfect if you park to the right on the highest position there as well, over here. All right. So it's a judgment call that you make as you move forward. Right? Very nice. So let me move forward, and I would like to, show you how to manage, how to start stitching the second block once you have tons of threads part within the block. So let me just come over here. Let me be a good girl and pick everything in sequence. Okay, so this is a really good example as well. So you can see what's happening with this color is there's only one single stitch, just right there. And I look around, there's nothing else, which is quite rare for this chart. There's no other stitches of this color. And this one is simple. You stitch it, you end it. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. 6, 4, 7. So there's nowhere to park. So you just stitch it and end it. And the same thing, even there are multiple color stitches. If there's nowhere else nearby, you just stitch it and end it. 6, 4, 7. Or if you have, a single stitch, but the next stitch is 3 blocks away, you could park it there as well if you want to. There's no hard and fast rules saying that you can't cross 3, 4 blocks or beyond, as long as you're happy to do that. But obviously, there are implications for parking in really long distance, because as you park, you take your thread over. And if you park in long, really far away on a regular basis, it doesn't matter if you just, a few times. If you do it on a regular basis, what happens is you're going to build up a lot of threads under the fabric. And if you build up a lot, a couple of things could happen. Your bag, I don't think it's going to be messy, because if you flow this way, everything gets tucked in. It might become a little bit thicker. That's it. Or when you start stitching over the area that's got a lot of threads underneath, crossing everywhere, it might make it a bit harder to stitch. So the stitching experience might have, it might have impact on that. So these are the kind of factors you consider as a stitcher. Some people don't mind it. They can just push the needle through, lots of threads underneath, they don't mind. I do personally. I like my fabric to be as clear as possible. So if you only park 1 block away, you shouldn't have that problem. There might be some threads crossing at the bottom, but not too badly, because all you have is the part threads that's taken from the previous block. That's it. Right. Let me pick the next one. Okay. And we're still pretty good with the time here. 3722. 3722. And if you have previous questions that I didn't see, as I'm not scrolling back, you can, if you don't mind, you can just copy and paste, like in right now, and I'll try to look to the chat as much as I can whenever I look up. Okay, so you need to catch the timing. It's like a game, another game. So this block, let me zoom in a little bit more. I am going to have a quick glance on the direction formation of the stitches and decide where to park it. So this one, I think it makes sense to park down. Normally I'll park down, but I'll park to the right in this instance and show you how I would do it. If you stitch this block of this color from top to bottom, it would take you to the bottom of the block, okay? And it makes sense. Personally, if I did that, I will park to the bottom. That's the nearest spot, because I don't like to take my thread too far away. But I am going to park to the upper right of the next block. So my starting point of stitching will be from here. Okay, I'm going to start stitching from this position. So as I flow my stitches up, if you look at that, I'm going to end up, my end stitch is going to be here. And it wouldn't be very far away, less than 10 stitches when I part to the right. Okay, so that's what that's my game plan here. And I'm going to start from the bottom. And do it like this. Moving forward, I would have more sessions to show you different ways of diagonal parking. I want to focus on the diagonal parking for a little bit because that's probably most popular and kind of makes sense to a lot of human brain. You know, some people park, well, again, some people might park from bottom left or upper right. You know, every stitcher is different. But diagonal, whichever way you're flowing your stitches to, diagonal seems to flow better. And also another advantage of doing diagonally, if we haven't talked about already, is as a pattern, you probably get to the center a little bit quicker comparing to if you do from, you know, top row first and reach the end of the piece to the right and then move down. Some people do it row by row, column, row by row as in row of blocks at a time. Some people do that as well. But it would take normally much longer to get to the center. So when you go diagonally, you can get to the center a lot quicker anyway. Not saying it's going to be fast, not with projects like this, but so I'm going to complete, let me just mark the stitches as I go so you know what I'm doing here. So I'm basically going from bottom up to complete my stitches. Okay, so I've done these ones and I'm going to move over here because I am going to part to the top spot on the right side, which is on the second row there. Let me just adjust it so you can see the block on the right as well. Do you not think this is fun? It's like a puzzle game. And it's a kind of puzzle game that isn't, you know, black and white. So different stitchers might make different choices and they all work. But it's a game that you play with yourself to see how efficient you can make it for you to part without, you know, for me, one of my primary sort of consideration would be not building up too much bulk, and also no floating thread if I can possibly help it. Floating thread, I simply means threads that you take over stitch areas like these. So I do not take my thread at the bottom. If you think about it as the bottom, right? I do not take my thread over like this. That's a big no-no for me. And some stitches don't mind. You know, at the bottom, they can take the thread over, part somewhere over. But this is what happens at the bottom of the stitches. That I don't do. So you know, I make my decisions based on how I can not do that. So this thread is getting a little bit short, but I think I'm able to part still. So I've got 2 more stitches. So as you can see, I'm taking the stitches from the bottom up, which is counterintuitive for a lot of stitchers, I understand. But this is my game plan, okay? So I'm going to make this one over here. And then, voila, I'm very close to my parking location, which is over here. Can you see that on my pattern? So that's where aiming for. So I'm going to pull my thread over. That's not too far. That's 8 stitches. And also this is on stitch area, so everything's going to get tucked down there. So I'm going to park it. Right. And mark all my stitches here. Make sense? Okay. Let me keep moving. I want to complete this block here. So we can, I can show you how to manage the next block. So as you stitch, they might get a little bit unruly sometimes. All you have to do is just, brush the threads to a different direction and it will be fine. Fine. Next one. The next color is 779. It'll be so funny if I get a spooky bingo. Yes, and a demo, because you're probably stitching as well. 779. So this one, very good. This one, I could part down, couldn't I? If you look at this, I could part down, I could part right. I think for this, in this instance, I will reveal my decision, okay? To keep you on the edge of your seat there. Ooh, you probably didn't think that parking would be so thrilling. It's like a suspense, like a thriller. Oh, where's Yogi going to park next? I don't know. So my starting point is here. It will probably give you some clue there. And again, there's no right or wrong, okay? Three. Four. All right. So this one is interesting. So normally, if you stitch within the 10 by 10 blocks, occasionally, as you try to stitch the next stitch, you will have to take the thread over the stitch area. And it's not too bad. It's 2 stitches, 3 rows. It's not too bad. And in this instance, I am going to take it over to the bottom and stitch. Okay. But I just want to explain to you if, oh dear, I've got a doorbell going. I don't know who that is. I don't think it's for me. So in this instance, there are only 3 stitches. It's kind of okay on the edge for me, okay? If it's further, I might think again. But if I had to take it across, let's say if there's 1 stitch over there, that I have to cross maybe more than 3 stitches, what I would do is I might skip this stitch. Can you see this stitch at the bottom right there? So let me just mark all these stitches here. So the next one is at the bottom right there of this block. Can you see that? There are occasions that I actually leave it out. If I have to cross over this area, if there's more than 3 stitches, 3 rows, I might actually leave it out till I stitch the bottom block, because at the bottom there are 3 stitches of the same color. I might wait till I stitch the bottom block to complete this stitch. Okay, so sometimes, in an extreme situation, if I have to take something over a stitch area that's more than 5, 3 or 4, then I might, just leave it out until the bottom block, so I don't have to take my threads over. I hope that makes sense. But in this case, I'm happy to cross over and do this stitch, and I'm actually going to park over to the block on the right there. I could park down, but because there's only one stitch on the right there, and I don't want to start a new thread just for that, so I'm going to park it over to the right. And you can lift your threads up to make sure that you're on the right spot. So I'm going to park it there. So when I get to this block, there's only one stitch. I don't have to, bring a new thread in. Okay, here. And everything will be there for me, ready. All right. So now the next one is easy. There are quite a few stitches here, so I should be able to complete this block very quickly. Let me look at the time. 6. I like to finish maybe by the latest 8 o'clock, so we can start at 8:30 p.m. With our saw here. 8:14. We should be fine. We should be fine. So we have time to make a cup of tea, or a cup of hot chocolate. Who knows? 8:14 before that. Let me thread this one. So this one is this one is interesting. So what I'm going to do, I am going to park. Where would you park then, guys? So the few stitches below, there are a whole bunch of stitches to the right. Interesting. Okay, so I am going to, why don't I do this? Okay, I know this is maybe only I do it. I am going to start from here. Okay, there's a horizontal row. That's all the way there. So this is not something that all stitches do. Maybe just me. I don't know, because I'm just a little bit particular about crossing over to stitch area. Can you guys guess what I'm going to do in this situation? Winner. Round of applause for the person or stitchers that actually guess can predict what I'm going to do. Go for it. If anybody can figure out what my plan is, you get to join me with the emoji buffet along with Guess My Stitches winner. Turtle Stitcher Heather says stitch zigzag. River says yogi move. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see what else. Frida says you're going to leave those bottom stitches and park in the second block. Okay, second block being the block on the right. All right, anyone else? Diamond says you follow the rows. Oh. One of you is kind of close, but you haven't sort of explain how I'm going to complete this block. So if you could go further, a little bit further. Okay, so I'm reaching to the right side of the block here, right? Heather says you're doing the zigzag alternate top and bottom rolls. So Heather thinks that I go top, bottom, but I haven't been doing that though. I'm moving to the right side of the block. And yes, all of you saying that I'm going to part to the right. Okay. Anything else? Right, okay. Okay, so I finished the top part, the 2 rows involved this color. And then I'm, right next to me, there's, these 2 rows kind of just keep going for another block. And you guys are right. Let me just have a look at Heather's. You are working in 2 rows, top stitches and bottom stitches as they alternate. You're kind of 50% there. I think quite a few of you. It's about 50% correct. I am going to part to the right here. You are correct. I am going to, I lost my thread there. So in this instance, so if you're new to parking, this bit might be kind of maybe too nuanced. But I want to show you all the likely situation that could happen and how you can make your decisions, right? So in this case, if you look at the formation of this block here, all right, there's some stitches very closely together connecting to the block to the right. So this is quite obvious choice for me to part to the right. So you're absolutely right that I am going to park over here with this thread, but you're only 50% there. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the bottom ones, because they're actually 4 stitches, if there was just 1, I'll probably leave it. Sis says you're going to part in the right block and start a new thread and part the thread in the block underneath. Yes, sis is correct. Yes. So as I said, if there was just 1 stitch, I'll probably just leave it until I get to it at the bottom. If there are more stitches of the same color, if not, I'll probably just do the 1 stitch. Okay, single stitch on its own. But there are 3 stitches at the bottom and there's 1 more below. What I'm going to do is to start a new thread. Okay, A14. So sis is totally correct. A14. So these are the things I like to do because it makes me feel like I'm being clever. You probably go, no, you're looking for pain. But for me, I feel like I'm cheating the system, because if I follow the method to the T, I'll need to take my thread over here, which is quite ugly for me. I don't like it, even though, there are only 3 stitches, but I don't like it. So in order to cheat the system, I am going to start a new thread, okay, and create another pass thread below. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start from this stitch here, all right? And of course, you don't have to do this at all. You can just cross the thread over and stitch, and that'll be done for you. But this is why it becomes personalized and very individual in terms of, the decisions you make. And it's pretty good because I'm not doing extra work, because when I get to the bottom block, I need to start a new thread anyway. So I'm just starting a little bit earlier and park below. So when I get to the block below, the thread is there. So it's not extra work. I'm just doing it in different timing and also manage the floating thread underneath. That's it. Can you see that? Now I'm parking at the position at the bottom, and I'm going to mark all the stitches here and then park. Make sense? So, and total stitches says you could have stitched the top row continuously, carrying across the alternating stitches. What do you mean alternating stitches? Then second row continuously. Okay. Do you mean do one row and then take it back, right? And then drop. Yes, that's very clever. Yes, I could have done that. So what Heather says is, if I understood it correctly, in terms of, because my goal is to reduce the distance that I have to cross over stitch area and also minimize the length, right? Two considerations for me as a stitcher. So what Heather says, you could do the top row, okay, and then roll it back, stitch backwards, not stitch backwards, but in sequence, and then park it down, and then come down here and stitch. Yes, very good, very good. I could have done that. That's a very short distance. Very good, very good. I like that. Yes. So those are the things that you could, incorporate into your parking. It's great fun because there's more than one answer. Joyce has joined us. Joyce says, Yogi, you want a name for that method? Divide and conquer. Joyce is in top form, we know, on this Saturday. Yes. Divide and conquer. Yes, I have divided it and I've conquered it. Round of applause. I've got the best chat on the internet. It's official. Oh, everybody's so clever. Yes. Here we go. Divide and conquer indeed. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And I'm aiming to complete this block for you, and once we start to explain the second block in terms of how you're going to approach it when you have part threads, then we're very close to what we're trying to achieve today. Okay, I don't need to complete this block, I just need to do a few more and then give you some explanations. So we're doing good. Let me look at this one. So guys, so this is another one here. In this case, let me just take my thread here. 3327. 3327. Oh, it's not 3228. 3228. Yes. So this one, there are a couple of things you could do. Oh, there are three things you could do, three options for you, right? Let me show you here. And let me know where you would park next as a stitcher. Where would you personally park? Oh, Joy, Heather says, I love jigsaw puzzles, and this kind of stitching appeals to that part of the brain too. Yes, there is a problem-solving process and planning process. And also for me, it's more like a trying to cheat the system, kind of part of my brain. So this one, I've got one stitch for this block only. And the location for me to park, I can park to the right, right? And there's stitches at the bottom as well of the bottom block. And also, there's another stitch to the diagonal right there. Okay, but obviously, the first choice on the right, second choice bottom, and then the third one to the right. So again, it's not a black and white situation. Where would you park, guys, in this situation? So I'm going to just go ahead and stitch this one first, and then see if we have the meeting of the mind in terms of where you will park and where I will park. So if you know what my priorities are as a stitcher, where do you think I would park them? Nice and easy. I've done this one. Okay. So I could take it to the right here because this is not that far away. But I think that's choice one. I could go for this one actually. Yes. Because up to this point, I was thinking maybe I'll park it diagonally to the bottom right there, because it's a lot more clear in terms of my path, taking my thread. Taking to the right here is not too bad, but it's a, you know, I am crossing probably more stitches. Suzanne says, I think you will park in the lower block, but you could do a yogi move and park over to the second block. Ah, you mean, yes, if you don't know what a yogi move is the technique I perform, you know. Yes, do a back flip and anchor my thread away to the area that's unstitched and move it back to another location to avoid taking my thread over stitch area. So that's yogi move. And Heather says you won't park because you will have to carry too far. And Kimberly says you will park bottom. Ooh, interesting. You know what? In this case, to be honest, I wouldn't totally say no to parking to the right. So even though, so this would be the highest, you know, there are only 2 stitches to the right. Even though it's not the most elegant situation because I am taking over to some parts right here, but it's not fully stitched, so I could get away with it. So for today, I'm going to park here, okay? But normally, I will probably park to the diagonal right here. 1, 2, 3, because for me, it's not too far away. And also it's very clear in terms of path. I would park to the right. But for today's exercise, because I want the thread to be here to be ready. And in this case, I wouldn't park to the bottom because it's quite far away. It's more than 10 stitches. I would do so if there are no other stitches around. Personally, I would do that. But today, I'm going to pick a less elegant choice. I'm going to park to the right there. So it's ready for me when I'm, you know, doing the rock to the right. But the second choice, the top choice, normally I'll probably park diagonal to the right. Okay, so that's what I do. So it probably just shows how we are different in terms of stitches, right? Sis says, I would park to the right and stitching in block 3. Block 3 is not sure what you mean. So where would you park them? So that's my decision for today. Okay, because sometimes you if you're in the mood of wanting to just get on with it, you know, when you get to the second block, you want to have maximum numbers of stitches colors already parked because it's convenient, isn't it? So you might make, you know, slightly different decision. But if my top priority is to have a clear path for my thread underneath, I'll probably park down here to the diagonal position. So, all right. So that one's done. Let me move forward with the next one. Let me follow the order so it's all nice and clear for you. So this one's 3 stitches. This one isn't too bad. It's not a top decision for me. I think, okay, let me know what you think I would do in this situation. Okay, 355, 355. Let me just pick my thread first. And I'll 355 here. Joy says diagonal parking would mean you have to start a new thread in block 2 and 3 for that color. I would look further right and down. For the current color. So let me just show you all 3 blocks there, so you have a view there. Well, this color, if I stitch from the left, it would take me to the bottom right of the block. I could part down because there are quite a few stitches very close by. So it really depends on your priority at that point. If you your priority is to have, you know, all the threads ready for you for the second block, you will part to the right, even though you have to take a little bit further. But if you want to, you know, minimize, if your priority is minimizing the thread distance, you will part down. I wouldn't part to the diagonal because that's out of order. So whenever I can, I want to keep the parking threads in sequence. So here we go. And I will make a judgment call in terms of where I'm going to park when I get there. Oh, this one's a little bit messy here. I don't know why. It's frayed a little bit. Let me see if I can fix it. Okay, it's not too bad. Sis says parking in block 2 when stitching block 2 and take that color to block 3. Joy says, just wanted to say it can be useful to look further the path of the color. Yes, absolutely. So this one, I am going to stitch this one and then move to the bottom one. Yes, you know, crossing over a couple of stitches, but it's still okay within my comfort zone. And then I'm going to stitch the one diagonally upper right here. Okay, so these are the 4 stitches. And for me, with this one, I'm comfortable to take it to the second block here and then park it in the highest position. So there's only 1 stitch on the 3rd row there, and that's where I'll be. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with this color. So if it's not close to the right, I'll probably park down. If the final stitch is somewhere here in the middle, I'll probably park down, but it's quite close to the edge, so I'm okay to park it upwards. All right, let's move forward. And the next color is interesting. This one is a little bit trickier. Yes, 498, 498. So 498 I've got here already threaded. So 498, there's nothing below, okay? There's no stitches below. And there's 1 stitch to the right there. And a diagonal as well. All right. But these ones are done. Okay, if I stitch the bottom one, let me get started with the stitches. Okay, so if you stitch in the diagonal position, there will be no option to your left, right? So you want to leave all the stitches on the left out of the equation. And let me start from this one. So wherever you stitch, whatever blocks you're starting, you should have the block above already stitched and the one on the left stitched when you do it diagonally. So this one, very good question, this one. This one is a little bit trickier. Well, I'm stitching 14 counts. So pin stitch is one of my options. If I'm doing higher counts, like maybe 25 is still okay. If I'm doing 28, this method I'm going to do is not going to be as readily available because it's trickier to do. So what I'm going to do is a yogi move, okay? As Suzanne mentioned earlier on, I'm going to do a yogi move. So as you can see, my final stitch, the 3 stitches I've completed, the final one is up here. All right, it's here. So if I was to part to the right, you absolutely could, but it means I have to take over stitch area, 3 stitched area, which I'm reluctant to do. I could just park it over here and get it done with, correct? But instead of doing that and take my thread straight over, because this is where I want to park here. But instead of doing that directly, I am going to just come down here, a couple of stitches away, it doesn't have to be far. I'm going to do a quick pin stitch, just one round. And 14 count is quite easy to do, so I'm going to do a pin stitch here and just push it down, just anchor my thread away from this area, and then I'm going to take it back. So this is what Suzanne mentioned. This is the yogi move, okay? You can have it, no copyright. you can have it, it's yours. And then, so what happens underneath my fabric is this floating thread is coming down here, being anchored, and I'm being taken over. So when I stitch the block next to it, everything will get stitched down. And that makes me happy. Okay, so it's what makes you happy as a stitcher. Because I wouldn't have been happy if I had to take this thread over to this area. Oh, I don't like it. All right, so this is me. This is just me being me. And that's what I do. Yes. Kristen S says, knowing that I want to get to the highest stitch possible, I will stitch all in block 1, fully complete one of the stitches along the path toward parking the upper right. So everything you do will be parking to the right. Does that mean you wouldn't park down in any way? Just to make sure that I understood what you're saying. So I've got 4 different colors here. In this case, I think just for demonstration purposes, because these are 4 different single stitches, I'm going to leave them out. So let's pretend that I've done these, okay? Because I'm keen to move to the next block and show you what happens, okay? So as we were talking about earlier on, we're stitching in sequence. We are stitching starting with block 1, and then we move to block 3. So the 2 and 3, and then eventually we do 4, 5, 6. So you can see what's happening there. We're going diagonal, we're going to top to bottom left. So that's the kind of sequence. And eventually you go for 7, 8, 9, 10. Make sense? Okay. So as we come back to this situation here. So now I have completed block 1. Okay. And we're moving on to the second row diagonally for 2 and 3. So I'm going to go from upper right as my second choice. Okay, so we're coming back here. All right, so I'm going to start with my block 2 here. So this is where there's some bits and pieces of information that's important for you as a stitcher if you're starting stitching. So we have a whole bunch of part threads here, and you might be wondering, then where do you start? So the first block, we're actually starting from top to bottom in sequence. You can do it in different sequence, but it makes sense to go from top to bottom. And when you get to the second block, you might go, well, then I start from the top. And I'll say, don't do that, because what you do is, if you look at the second block here, let me move my block over to the second one so we can all see which one we're highlighting. Okay, so now I'm moved to the right there, as you can see, with all the part threads marked. Let me lock that. And once we're here, we're following the same sequence. We're going to either part to the right or bottom, and you know, I want to show you one more option. I would even part to block 3 if I have options. Okay, we can talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of where do you even start from here? Now I have a whole bunch of part threads here, and if you start, let me pick the first color here. Let's say if you want to stitch from top to bottom the same sequence as the block 1, okay, this is what's going to happen. If you look at the distribution of the first color here, the first part thread here, it's flowing from top to bottom. That's normal, right? If you start from top, what you're going to do, if you pick the thread and start stitching, it's not going to take long for you to run into other threads here, and you will have to manage the process. I have seen people doing that because they just prefer doing from top to bottom. You could, but you're just making your life a lot harder, because you have to fight through and put them away and stitch those stitches at the bottom. And you could potentially have more part threads. You know, you can have double the number, depends. So what you want to do is to do the reverse. Once you move to the second block, you want to lift all the threads here and pull them up, upper left. That makes sense, because we're going from the opposite direction. We're going from bottom right to upper left with this block. So it's reverse. Okay, we're going this way. So lift all your threads up to the diagonal position. That's most tidy. And we're going to start from this stitch. Okay, we're starting from the lowest part thread. So forget about all the stitches that have not got a thread part. Start with part thread, because we want to clear all the threads away, part to the next blocks, before we start thinking about all the remaining stitches. Okay, so double checking the time. I think we're gonna go till 8 o'clock, and then we take a break, and then we start 8:30 for ourselves. So I want to move forward with the explanation here. Might not be demonstrated fully, but hopefully it makes sense. So I'm going to start with the bottom thread here. So instead of picking the first part thread, I'm going to pick this one. There's only one stitch, so nice and easy. So I'm going to start stitching it and go through the same process as the first block in terms of deciding where to park. So this one's easy peasy. I've got one just slide directly below and nowhere else. So this one will be a very easy choice for me. I am going to just make this one stitch here and then park just one block away here. That makes perfect sense there. Okay, nice and easy. I'm gonna park over here and mark this one. Done. And then I'm going to move to the one on the right. Personally, I would. You could start doing this one as well, but I want to move from bottom right to upper left. It's just more tidy that way, because then you do not run into any of the part threads. So this is the order I would do. And this one is also easy peasy. Look at this. 2 stitches, I part to the right. Very, very easy. And there's no surrounding stitches. Okay. So same decision-making process there. So I won't be able to, I'm not going to clear all the threads here. I just want to go through all the things you need to know in order to do that, okay? So same process there. I hope that makes a lot of sense for you, because we're trying to manage all the part threads and, you know, take advantage of the fact that they're already there. You can tell that I don't have to go and look for my threads. I don't have to do any starting methods. I don't have to end anything. I just part to the right, and that's it. So it could become faster for a lot of you. And then I'm going to mark this one. Can you see? I'm starting a lot less time managing, you know, looking for my threads. I'm already on the third color here. Let me have a look. Which one is this? This is on the second over here. I forgot to mark this one, but it's perfectly fine. It was here. Okay, so I'm going to just tap on it. I'm going to finish this one, and I'm going to sort of just explain what happens when you clear all the threads, all the part threads. So this one, let me have a look. So, you know, even if you forget to mark like I just did on the chart, just look at the position of the stitch and you know where it is, and probably, you know, check these swatches. Just make sure that you actually park in the correct location. So it's not that often that you actually just don't know what it is. You know, things have to go very wrong that you just park in a completely wrong area, and you haven't marked your chart. Then yes, confusion could happen. But otherwise, you just look at the position of the part thread. If you have parked correctly, even if you haven't marked it, you would know what it is. So this one, let me have a look. This one, I'm going to park to the right because it will be in sequence. This would be the block I will get to first. That's number 4. If I park down, this block is number 5. It's slightly further away. So this is just what you kind of, you know, think about as you park. Okay, so I'm going to park this one over here and mark it, okay? And mark these stitches here on the left. So you see what's happening. So I'm slowly repeating the process, considering the same factors as block 1, but I do not need to worry about finding these colors. They're all here ready for me. And the first thing when you get to the second block is to clear all the part threads. That's the first thing you do. Just bring everything to the upper left. If you're doing the different direction to the bottom left corner, you do the opposite. So you just mirror the positions of the threads here. So we need some imaginations here, okay? So imagine if all these threads are done, so it would be full of stitches here, just like these ones, and all the threads are cleared away. Essentially, you can repeat what you've just done when you start the first block. You can start from the beginning, from the top, pick, you know, colors by sequence, complete them. It's exactly the same. The only difference is you have more stitches already on your block there. But you can still go through the sequences and start filling the colors. So in terms of the order you fill in the remaining block colors, it's entirely up to you. Some people might follow the sequences. Some people go for minimum number of stitches. If you have apps like, you know, Saga, the app will sort the order for you. So you deal with the loose stitches first, which will create less problems like this one that you have to take over part threads. Okay, so we can talk about those type of options in sort of future sessions, but just give you some insight that there's no hard and fast way in terms of how you fill in the remaining stitches. All we're trying to do is to complete all the stitches here color by color. So it's color completion of the block, and then so on and so forth, and follow the sequence. Once I finish this block, it will be the next one. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to mention that I haven't thoroughly explained is, yes, we have three choices in terms of you can part to the right, second to the bottom, and diagonally to the right. But as you move forward with more rows, okay, you might come across this type of situation. So here we have the blocks in the middle, and as you move forward, 8 and 9 will fall into that category as well, where when I stitch 5, when I finish 4, right, and move down to block 5, block 6 is still not stitched, right, if you follow the sequence. So I have block 6 as an option as well. Just like if I'm stitching block 2 here, I could potentially part to number 3 as well. I think yes, if it's close to me, as long, I think personal rule for me, as long as it's not crossing over stitches. Let's say if I have the next position of a color I'm stitching is at the bottom of block 3, which I can safely cross over the clear area, unstitched area, and part down there, I would. Personally, I would. So even though by default you have the 3 directions you could park, but you have option 4 as well, like this. So with block 5, you can part to block 8, block 9, and blocked diagonally to the right. I don't know what number that would be, but you also have block 6 as an option. Okay, so you have to decide that as a stitcher. Okay, so let me know if I left out anything as far as parking is concerned. Let me look at the chat now. We're going to spend maybe 20 minutes. Okay, 20 to 30 minutes. I can maybe answer your question and capture anything maybe I missed out. I'm sure I probably have. So if you have any questions, you can post them now. Or sorry, if you have posted earlier on, I didn't see. You can also maybe repeat that, cut and paste or whatever. Heather says, I have stitched 48 stitches in the time it's taken Yogi to do more than 100 and do tutorial. Oh, Heather. Heather is trying to make me feel better. Heather is slower than me. Very good, but then you're watching me, you see. So I want to give you excuses. You're multitasking as well, and you're typing. You're responding to me. So 48 is tremendous. It's tremendous. Maybe it's very confetti. This is not very confetti at all. So. But do he say, is this a new project? No, this is the this one I'm stitching. This is one of my existing projects. I'm just using it as an example. I just moved a few blocks away for a clear area. And Suzanne says, I like minimum to max. I think Suzanne is referring to once you cleared all the stitches here, right? And you have remaining stitches, you can choose to complete it in various ways. Top to bottom, time writing in sequence, or following thread numbers. However you do it, it's just a matter of picking the colors and park accordingly. That's it. Suzanne is knitting socks. Okay, so anything I haven't touched. Okay, I just thought of one. Some of you might be thinking about tension lines. Whether this type of stitching is going to cause any sort of clear lines, because we're doing block by block. I can only refer to my own experience. So far, I have not noticed any tension line. There are quite a few projects that I stitch in this method, particularly when I started stitching Heaven and Earth full coverage. This was my default method because it allows me to manage the color changes a lot more, transitioning from stitching something like dimensions, literally no confetti whatsoever, very little color changes. So this was my default method for a long time, and to be honest, I haven't noticed anything. I know some of you, if you're worried about it, you could start to feather out the edges. So if you have connecting stitches, let's say these browns, they have more browns to the right, you can stitch 1 or 2, and you can do that randomly to to either corner sides here, and then just feather out. But to be honest, personally, I'm not worried about it with this method so far. I have not noticed anything. And oh, Natty says I have 279 stitches. Will post my progress in this session. Yes, very good. So let me know if you have questions. If not, we can potentially conclude this tutorial. Hopefully I've captured enough for you that if you've never parked before, this could be your entry method, and then from then on there are other parking methods that hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate for you. And then you have these methods in your repertoire. You can switch back and forth, and also there's non-parking methods you can blend in as well, and you can introduce parking to other methods. So it's not a do this or nothing kind of method. It's kind of, you can introduce certain elements to your current way of stitching. So it's very flexible, and it's up to I think you would start to notice and discover more possibilities as you start stitching. So let me have a look. Joyce, let me just bring on this one over here in this, under this mode here. Joyce says, I've seen the last part, but it's like you would like to give you a compliment for making this very clear video. Oh, Joyce, this would help stitchers who want to learn the parking method. Thank you for this. Joy, thank you so much. That means a lot. Yes, that's why I want to do it, because we stitch together every day, and I know majority of you probably are aware and already have done this method, but there's some non-parkers there. Okay, guys, there are some guys that are allergic to parking, and I like to seduce them to the method a little bit. And also we have a lot of new stitchers, maybe transition like I did from other type of projects coming to this one, and this would be one of the options, one of the options for them to do, and it's fun. As you can see, it's like puzzle game here. So thank you very much, Joyce. And Lizzie says, no questions, I might give this a go on my next project. That's tremendous. That would make me very happy, because sometimes there are methods we go, well, I'll never do it because I don't want it, or 10 stitches, I'll never do it. But once you've tried it, you might love it. Okay. And Suzanne as well, totally agree with Joyce. Thank you guys being so supportive. And so great, so we have a little bit of time here. Do you guys want to start at 8 p.m. in about 25 minutes time, or are you happy 8:30, which is just over an hour's time? I'm happy to do either. Why don't we play safe? Let's start at 8:30, and I'll set up the next stream here and for you. So we will meet. We have time to make a nice cup of tea and grab some snacks. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next stream at 8:30 UK time. Okay. So thanks, guys. I'm not signing out. I'm just have a little break. I'll see you at 8:30 UK time. It's about an hour's time, less than an hour. Okay, guys. See you later. Bye.